Well, I've got 6 o'clock. Would you like to hold for another minute or two and see if we have the planning commissioner that shows up, or shall we go ahead and proceed?
I'll go ahead and roll.
You okay with that?
That's fine.
Okay. Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Manson, Templin,
Yes.
Lane, Huggins,
Yes.
Milburn,
Yes.
Maddock, Schultz.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners Lane and Maddock are absent today.
Thank you. Item 3A, approve the planning commission agenda. Anyone have any comments or suggested changes to the agenda?
Make a motion, we approve the agenda.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Agenda's been approved. Item 3B, approved minutes of the planning commission meeting held on March 26, 2024. Any changes or corrections, additions that need to be made to the minutes? Seeing none, is there a motion?
Make a motion, we approve the minutes from the planning commission meeting held on.
A second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Seeing none, minutes have been approved. Item C, disclosure of conflicts of interest. Anyone have anything to disclose tonight? I don't technically have a conflict of interest on 5C on the public hearing item. That said, I am familiar with some of the parties involved, and I probably should recuse myself from that. Linda's not here, so I guess someone will also have to take over the meeting on that. And I don't know that we have a protocol for that.
Don't know that there is one either.
So I
Lucky that we have
suppose,
the city attorney in the room. Maybe just take a vote to appoint someone.
anyone wish to be drafted to run item 5C on the agenda tonight? Don't all raise your hands at once.
What's that? I didn't hear what he said.
He said, who's been on the longest? Do you
Uh,
have tenure?
I'd nominate John Schultz.
I think I just got,
There's been a
I
nomination.
think I just got hornswoggled.
Anyone else? You guys good with that?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So by acclamation, John, thank you very much for
Yeah.
stepping in for me on item 5C.
Okay.
Anyone else a conflict tonight? Item 3D, disclosure of outside communications regarding commission business. Anyone been contacted? Anything you want to discuss? Okay. Item 3E is to discuss the May Planning Commission meeting.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if, it's just the day after the holiday, and I don't know if there's any concerns about commissioners not being able to make it that day for business at City Hall, but it's the day after a holiday weekend, so I didn't know if there's any desire for the commissioners to take it the Thursday before could work pretty well. 23rd of May, but, and it's just.
So-
Give them 28, we can just leave it.
Yeah, our set date is May 28th, and I guess the question is, does everybody have plans such that we won't be able to have quorum that day? Do we need to move it?
I'm good with it.
I think I'm good
Other than
too.
last time that happened, a tornado went through, but.
Well, yeah, let's hope that doesn't happen again.
No conflict.
Okay, so we're comfortable keeping it on the 28th? Thanks, Brad. Thanks for bringing that to our attention. Moving on then to item 4, the call of the public. Members of the public who wish to address the planning commission regarding items not on the agenda may do so at this time. Any presentations for informational purposes only, no action will be taken, and there is a 4-minute time limit. If you'd like to address the planning commission, please approach the podium, give us your name and address. I don't believe we have anyone online.
Nobody online.
Okay. Close the call to the public. Item 5, public hearing. 5A, special use permit for 8760 Kill Creek Road for an electronic variable messaging.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, we've had discussions over updating the EBMB or digital signs section of the city code. The council did adopt the recommendation from the planning commission at the previous meeting, and Eric, who actually got this process started representing the Methodist Church very patiently since December when I had my first conversation with him. And we are now finally at the point where we can consider his special use permit. So he did get that into me, actually in February. He's pretty ambitious. So here we are in April. Just briefly, I'll go through the items that we typically look at, the character of the neighborhood. It is a residential area. The Oak Country Golf Course is to the west. There are duplexes to the north, even though they're zoned commercial. And there's single-family residences to the south and the east. Also, because of our updating of the setbacks and distances, we do find that it's more than the sign, potential sign is located more than 200 feet from a single-family residence or duplex, so it'll meet that criteria. It is going to be less than 500 feet from a residential district, so at 10 o'clock, the sign will need to be shut off. And of course, as in the adopted ordinance, it will have to have auto-dimming features, so there won't be any glare, things like that, in the evening hours. There isn't a lot of these questions really do sort of pertain to zoning, but there will be no impacts to utilities or services, ingress or egress, road network, there'll be no impacts. The only environmental impacts potentially would be visual glare. And once again, we've handled that with the auto dimming equipment and then the sign being turned off at 10 p.m. and then allowed to be turned on again at 6 p.m. And that's something that staff can certainly easily monitor. And it is pretty common to have those types of restrictions, so the sign manufacturers shouldn't have any kind of issues providing that type of equipment. Went through the whole process and looked at the application that is included in your packet. And once again, comprehensive plan doesn't get into specifics or the future land use plan on where special use permits may go. However, the applicant has been in touch through this one prior process, certainly wants to be a good citizen of DeSoto, and has really been patient through this whole process. When I told him it was going to take this long, he just kept on saying, well, I appreciate your help. And so here we are finally now at the point where Planning Commission can make a recommendation. And really, as you can see, if you've looked at it, you can see the pictures of the sign itself. It's going to be exactly what's pretty much there, other than just replacing the white old-fashioned where you have to put the letter up and spell things out one letter at a time. So they'll have some much greater opportunities to get the message out that they want to send to the public. We are recommending approval with a special use permit with a term of 20 years for the electronic video messaging board at 8760 Kill Creek Road. So with that, I will stand for any questions, and Eric Young, the applicant, is here if you'd like to address him as well.
Questions for staff?
Been through this one enough, I think we can.
Thank you. This is a public hearing, so at this point, I would suggest opening up for public comment. If you have something you'd like to be heard on with respect to this matter, please approach the podium, give us your name and address. Again, no one online. Well, I would then close the public hearing. Matters before the Planning Commission. Any comments? Questions, concerns?
I think we kind of hashed out my concerns.
Yeah, I agree.
Looks like a good improvement to me,
Well, I would echo Brad's comments, and I appreciate your patience in helping us work through this. This has been useful not only for you, but anybody else that comes after you, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, you blazed the trail, Eric.
Okay, I suppose then the question is, before us in terms of a motion.
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the city council for the special use permit, term of 20 years.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Huggins.
Yes.
Templin.
Yes.
Manson.
Yes.
Milburn.
Yes.
Schultz.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Thanks, Eric. Moving to item 5B, a rezoning to R1 at 9814 Ingrid Street.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Once again, you have a application to rezone a tract at actually 9814 Ingrid Street. It's in the Arcadian Estates subdivision. The applicant initially approached me about getting a variance to build an accessory building. And in this RO district, we struggle with the setbacks that are fairly restrictive. They're not so bad for a 3, 4, 5 or greater acre tract, but a lot of these smaller RO lots are 1 acre, 1 and 1 1/4 acres. That makes it difficult for a accessory building of any kind of reasonable size to be constructed there. Didn't go down the variance path because part of the criteria that is looked at is, did the applicant create the situation? And this is the original owner of the property, so it clearly wouldn't have been able to work for a variance. Therefore, we went through the process of talking about rezoning the tract. As if you recall, the Taylor Court area off of Waverly, we did a single spot zoning for the same very reason. And so anyway, moving forward, did the notification process. I did get a call from one of the neighbors, just wanted a little more information, and after I talked to them about it, they didn't oppose the proposed action at all. As you can see, the zoning map does show that this whole area is rural suburban. These are the tracts that generally we have gone through the variance process a few times, but they've been like the second and third owners of some of these tracts, so that rule about the applicant not causing the action didn't apply to them. They also had some issues with the septic tanks and things like that, so we felt as an environmental concern, we didn't want to have to dig up, remove a septic tank, change a lateral field, something like that. So that's why some of those variances were granted in this area for accessory buildings. But you can see that these tracks and then the existing aerial photo, there's the subject property. And there is room for an accessory building, but the setback requirements really are pretty restrictive in the RO subdivision or RO zoning district. So, but before you have a review of the zoning compatibility factors. Really, looking at our zoning map, if you look at the broad version of it, there isn't any discernible difference between a lot of these RO and R1 districts, a lot of same size houses, a lot of the same types of activities. They're large lot residential uses with septic tanks and lateral fields. So the character of the neighborhood don't feel like it would be changed at all by changing from RO to R1. Don't feel like the suitability of the uses or the property be restricted under its existing zoning. It will remain a residence. It's just that we'll have an accessory building in the back potentially. Is there a need in the community for something like this? Not particularly. However, DeSoto is kind of looked upon as a friendly community for accessory buildings. It's something that we kind of, I wouldn't say we've promoted, but it is something that's available to our residents to have a larger accessory building, which I do think is desirable for a lot of residents in DeSoto. As far as environmental impacts, I don't think there'll be any reduction or increase of environmental harm. Economic impacts will be very little. There'll be some minor tax revenue generated from this, and don't feel like there'd be any impact on surrounding property values with a change from RO to R1. Yes, it would be a spot, it would be an island rezoning, which is something that we discourage. However, at this point, some of the variances we've granted we've kind of, our fallback position is if and I mentioned the septic tanks, if the septic tank and the lateral field weren't an issue, it would fit within the R1 setbacks, and that's kind of where the BZA had been on a lot of things. It's like they kind of look at that zoning map and go, there's really no appreciable difference between some of these areas that are zoned R1 and RO, but the R1 people don't have to go through this whole process. So that's why some of the variances that have been brought for these reasons have been approved. But in this case, as I mentioned, the variances request was brought by the original owner, and the way the process for variance granting a request is, that kind of kicks them out, so they wouldn't be possible. Anyway, staff supports this rezoning request, and also this will be probably a discussion item at our next meeting is, do we want to look at those accessory buildings setbacks, maybe specifically for that use like we did with the playhouses, and say, well, we're going to allow this in the RO and the R1 district at a certain level. So I guess you might want to start thinking about that. I don't know if that's something that will ultimately bring forward with a public hearing, but I think it'd be worth having a discussion and see what the planning commission's thoughts are on it. Anyway, getting back to this rezoning, staff does recommend the rezoning request. And at this point, I'll stand for any questions. The applicant, Mr. Frank, here is in the audience. So if you have any questions for him, he is available.
Hey, Brad, what setback are they wanting help with?
Well, all of them, I mean, side and the rear, but it's 10 to 15 feet for the side yard setback in R1. It's 25 feet in RO, and then it's 50 feet in the rear for RO and 30 for R1. So I think you'd rather have more, but that's the best we can do under the circumstances right now.
I guess, I mean, the only reason I ask is which, it would be hugging towards the west property line or the north and south, because I know those houses are under contract, and I just didn't know if reached out to the people purchasing those houses.
Well, they did get the notifications, and the sign was in the yard, so they're well aware of what's going on. I would say, from my understanding, the area for the accessory building is kind of where it says subject property. I mean, that kind of tucked in that back corner, if that's correct. And
So the person buying the house is aware.
Brad, I don't know that I may not have been on the commission when this happened. I kind of remember the subdivision coming up. I don't remember a zoning discussion with it, but is there a reason we went with an RO zone as opposed to an R1 for the subdivision? If there really isn't any difference, why did we go with an RO?
well, in hindsight, we probably should have gone with R1, but the applicant, back when this was brought forth, they wanted it to be RO. I mean, it was consistent if you look at the zoning map with what's in that whole area, and that's just kind of what happened. But in hindsight, probably should have brought it in as an R1. And that developer's not the current developer of the site, so they've sold their property and.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions for Brad? Thank you, Brad. So this item is a public hearing. Anyone who would like to address the planning commission regarding this matter, please approach the podium, give us your name and address. Seeing no one leap to the podium and no one online still?
Correct.
I'll close the public hearing. Matters before the planning commission. Any comments, questions, concerns?
No problem with it.
Yeah, I guess as long as again, I'm gonna say this again, as long as the person buying that house is aware of it, that'd be the one that would be my concern, that they're buying something that they don't know.
Well, no more, what more can you do other than send notice and post signs?
Well, yeah, but it'd go to the owner of the current house.
Granted, they can be mad about that, but what else would you do? Man, legally, what obligation do you have to go find someone? If there's no further discussion, entertain a motion.
I make the motion that we recommend approval to the city council of the rezoning to R1 at 9814 Ingrid Street.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call?
Schultz,
Yes.
Milburn,
Yes.
Huggins,
Yes.
Templin,
Yes.
Manson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
That brings us to item 5C, which is a rezoning of 75 acres at 2C2 at the southwest corner of Evening Star and 103rd Street. With that, I'm going to step out. So, John, you're
Do I
up.
need to move over there?
It's up to you and Tucker.
I'm pretty comfortable right here unless anybody wants.
Good there.
I'm good here. So, Brad,
All right,
fill us in.
Deputy Chairman Schultz.
Deputy Chairman.
All right, thank you, everyone. What you have is a request to rezone the southwest corner of 103rd at Evening Star. Actually, it was annexed into the city by the city council at just the previous meeting, so it's only been in the city for a week and a half now. There's actually 2 tracks. There's 76 acres in total. And of course, we went through the same process as we always do. In this case, because it's a county rezoning, it's a 1,000-foot buffer that we sent out letters to surrounding property owners. Sign has been up. I did get a call from a nearby resident that was not so concerned about the commercial development, was thinking that there might be multifamily following on top of this type change in zoning. However, there's been no discussion from the applicant or anybody else in the area that's talked to me about any kind of multifamily in this area. I guess would want to point out, when you do look at the zoning map, the land uses themselves, it's a very rural agricultural area, even though it's right off of K10 on a interchange. The Flint development is now light industrial to the north. The Astor development is still RUR, which is rural. They have not rezoned those properties, and as far as I know, hasn't been any interest in doing anything yet. They're still have their hands pretty well full with the Panasonic area and some of those tracks that to the north of that have the fire station. There are some plats. We've gone through the final preliminary and final plat for those areas as well. So this area still is in the holding pattern for sunflower development. And then, of course, the Flint development, the activities all along Edgerton Road and 103rd. So there really isn't anything happening in this corner just yet. One of the concerns that staff has, obviously, is the road network itself is not particularly strong in this area. Yes, 103rd is going to be improved. I think, Mike, there's a traffic circle going in at Evening Star or some sort of improvement, that area itself, but that is just right on the corner or right there at the interchange itself. So farther south on Evening Star and farther west on 103rd Street would need serious or significant improvements for any kind of commercial development. So really, it's kind of early in the stages for rezoning, considering that the utilities themselves aren't there. There's no sewer. There's limited water. Flint will eventually bring sewer to that corner, but there's no time frame for that. So, you know, we did go through that process. There's been no applications beyond the one building that is going up on the Flint development. So this really is sort of a long-term look ahead to see what happened there, but clearly common sense says interchange at a major highway with a significant industrial park and light industrial uses going up is going to not remain a rural residential or agricultural type use into the future. So I'll just quickly run through some of the items. I kind of hit some of the highlights and some of the concerns that staff has, but ultimately when you look at our land use plan, our comprehensive plan, we do show commercial and light industrial on these 2 tracks. And it is part of the area that we don't, I mean, it's still a long-term item, but it is within our development area that we've considered in the comprehensive plan. So, I'm not going to go through all the items in the zoning compatibility factors. However, I think you can pretty well understand that the opportunity to purchase this property at a reasonable price, get it rezoned, and then you're just gonna have to wait for those utility extensions to happen either through benefit districts or what might be in the future. But once, again, common sense says this area here will not remain as a residential or rural type location. And I don't see any issues going through the staff report and the golden criteria that we go through that would tell us otherwise. That wouldn't be a bad idea to go ahead and rezone this tract. So it has been annexed into the city. And we do have, I think it's 90 days that the applicant is supposed to submit a rezoning request, or the city can rezone it itself. But they've gone ahead and gone through the steps of the annexation process, signed the disclosure not to protest a benefit district. So all the things that city staff has required them to do, they've been willing to do. And you now have a rezoning request to C2 in front of you. So with that, I will stand for any questions you may have.
Anybody have any questions for Brad?
Brad, does the agreement not to object to any benefit districts include benefit districts for utilities?
I think, Mike, these were just
Yeah,
for.
I can
Oh,
address
go
it. And
ahead.
Patrick's in the room too. If he needs to. Sewer and road. Yeah.
The only catch is they have to benefit the property, so as long as they benefit the property. You said water was in short supply also?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's rural seven's water, and
Yeah, and to that topic, rural District 7, it's in their service territory, so it wouldn't be us serving water. They have a 12-inch main along 103rd Street that runs the entire north frontage of this property. And they're currently or will be serving water to the Flint development. So we can't say, there could be uses here on this property that exceed the capacity of that line. There could be lots of uses within the C2 district that do not. So that's the one that would be kind of a neutral finding. That's why, you know, some of those concerns were the reason for that finding on that item.
And a little bit off subject, does the city have a plan for the expressway, or is that part of the city's funding plans for the future?
So 103rd Street, are you talking?
No,
oh, yeah, Mike, I
Oh, that-
forgot to mention that the corridor that
Yeah.
supposedly ties K10, maybe even I-70 down to I-35
right.
comes right through
So
that.
we've purposely shown that as the location of that. That's our preferred location. That would be a KDOT. That would be a regional project with KDOT, and you know they are addressing the topic in the K10 corridor study. Just that the Evening Star interchange location would be a preferred location if that north-south outer loop connector ever happened. But that's kind of where they stop with that, because it's just way beyond the scope of the K10 study. So the answer to the question is, this wouldn't be a city project. There's no funding for that. It's not in any pipeline that I'm aware of. But obviously, it's been discussed and planned for decades now. Yep.
Since this is a public hearing, I'd like to open it for public discussion. If anybody would like to discuss this item, come up to the podium, please. State your name and address.
Home rule is considered,
we have a microphone
Yeah. I don't have a portable microphone, but maybe we could make an exception.
Yeah, I think we could probably make an exception
you
for this.
could-
You can stay there, Bob, if you want.
is considered C2 zoning. What industries, what apartments,
Just
industry of any kind?
see if we can get you a microphone here real quick.
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't think this is.
Mike, maybe could you relay the question for him?
Yeah. Try one more thing, though. Oh, here we go. Yes, I've got it. No, I've got it.
We got a microphone for you,
Mike
Bob.
works. So could you give your name and address first?
Robert Bartholomew, 39493 West Third Street.
Got it. Okay.
Cornhole is considered in C2 zoning, what type of industry, housing, what all is involved in this? Would it be, well, what is it?
I can answer that. I mean, C2 zoning is commercial, retail type development. It doesn't allow for any kind of housing at all. It's, you know, big box retailers, small stores, but there wouldn't be any kind of housing no housing in a commercial district, in the C2 zoning district.
How far west of Evening Star does this rezoning take place?
Well, if you can see on the map, on the screen up there,
The purple lines.
the purple lines are show where the tract is that is, and I don't know if, Mike, you can
I can
see
pull
a
up-
measurement on
yeah, I
there.
can pull up a measurement. Looks like it's roughly a quarter mile. About 1,300 feet west of Evening Star is the west line of the subject property.
Getting pretty close.
Does that make sense? Can you see, well, on the map I can highlight. Those are the two tracks that I just highlighted.
Well, are we considered inside DeSoto city limits now?
What's your name? What's your address again?
Robert Bartholomew.
I'm sorry, your address.
39493 West 103rd Street.
39493. No, you're not in this. You're not. You're in Johnson County. You're not in the city of DeSoto. Your property.
But right on the edge.
Yeah, your east property line is the city limit line. Yeah.
That's new.
Yeah, that was just annexed last week at the council meeting. Yep.
What would this do to our property value?
Difficult to answer that question. Yeah, sorry, I don't have I don't think anybody could legitimately give you a specific answer to that.
That would just be basically a speculation if we
Sure,
tried to throw
sure.
anything up
In
there.
many cases like this, if a development occurs and infrastructure is brought to the site, then your property becomes more valuable. But it becomes more valuable as something other than a residential use. It becomes valuable as a commercial use, and if all you want to do is live there, then that doesn't make any difference to you.
Property taxes.
Yeah, it's hard to say how or if property taxes for you would be affected.
This is our retirement home, so we're very, very interested in it. I'm really concerned.
Yeah, understand. Yeah, at the podium if you could.
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
My name is Jeffrey Allison. I live 39645 West 103rd, which is just west of the Bartholomews. When we built here just a couple years ago, we didn't realize all this was going to happen. And obviously, it's been, my wife and I, we built this our dream home, and this is where we're going to live. And now all of a sudden, Panasonic comes in, and Kansas State spent a lot of money bringing them in and all this. 103rd Street's kind of special. It's a two-lane road from Evening Star down to the Eudora exit. Half of it's into Douglas County, half it's in Johnson. It's going to be, to redo that road, you got to work with two counties to do that, for one thing. I don't want to see, as far as traffic goes, I don't want to see a 4-lane 103rd Street in front of my house. My next door neighbor has 2 small children. They're out there playing. And the same thing with me, with my grandchildren. I don't want to have a 4-lane road. And I just don't want to open this door for doing that. Evening Star Road's a dirt road to the south of 103rd Street. They are putting the circle in, which is fine. But I just don't know what's they're going to plan to build in this area. Right now, it's agricultural, which is nice. I look out my window and I can see the sunrise. On days, it's beautiful. I don't want to see a Walmart sitting there, and whatever that brings as far as C2 goes. I'm just, it's frustrating. I understand you can go north on Evening Star to get to I-70 and all that, but there's no reason to increase traffic. If trucks are coming down 103rd Street to Evening Star, get on north and get on K10. You don't need to go down 103rd Street. I don't want to increase traffic there, and I just don't want to see this happen, to be honest with you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Close as part of the public hearing, and
There's nobody online.
okay. Open for commission discussion.
Sorry about that.
I'm awake now.
He doesn't want the commission to discuss.
Yeah.
I apologize. Yeah, we're good.
Well, I think this is a little premature, but I think would be a appropriate use for this site, given the industrial park and the Panasonic site and all the things that are going to go in on Panasonic. I know it causes heartburn for all the folks that wanted to be in the country for good, and I'm in kind of the same boat where I live. This has changed the whole environment, but I think given the fact things have already changed, I would support this.
I think my comments are going to kind of echo what Commissioner Huggins has said. Looked at the future land use plan that's been planned for a commercial area at this corner. And tend to agree with staff's professional opinion on the rezoning. I'd like to hear what everybody else has to say, but I'd generally be in support of recommendation.
I guess I would say I would find it hard not to support it based on everything that's happened around it. Same questions were brought up with Flint property and the Astro development, and no infrastructure, no utilities, no plan, and we still approve that. So I find it hard that we could not pass the rezoning for this property as well.
I'm kind of in the same boat. We've already opened up the can of worms. It's kind of hard to put the worms back in there. But I can understand their point of view. I really wouldn't want a big development next to me when you plan on living there forever. And
I agree.
Look at that.
It's in my backyard too.
yeah,
So
I understand, but with the utilities not being there, I can't see that it happening immediately. So they do have a little bit of time there. So, and it is in the land use plan. So, guess we entertain a motion.
I would move that we recommend approval to rezone the southwest corner of 103rd and Evening Star from RUR to C2.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Milburn,
Yes.
Manson,
Yes.
Huggins,
Yes.
Schultz.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Get Roger back in.
Thanks for doing that.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, well, I believe that concludes our published business for tonight. So, any other business or topics to be discussed?
Yeah, I think we do need to talk about that setback stuff and the RO and R1. I think we need to clarify that. So I'd hate to have spot zoning all over town when somebody wants to put an accessory building up. I think that'd be a good discussion topic.
I would agree.
Yeah.
We probably ought to pull out the R1 and the RO, put them next to each other and kind of think about what we're doing there. I mean, my understanding of, and I'm sure that I'm wrong about it, but I've always understood that RO was basically to facilitate non-sewered development. And R1 is kind of designed for sewered development.
Yep.
That's always the way I've looked at it in my mind, and so having R1s in non-sewered property seems a little weird to me. So I'm with you.
Yeah, I just want somebody to come in and say, I got R1, I want R2, and, you know, set a pattern of spot zoning.
So Brad, think we might be able to work that into a future meeting?
Yeah, we'll see if we can get it on the next, the May 28th meeting. That's kind of the thought process.
Okay. I don't know if anybody else has noticed, but driving up Kill Creek Road from 83rd Street at night, one of the folks on the east side of the road has put up a new light on their accessory building that's just pointed right at the street.
Oh, really?
I might be the only one that noticed that, but I'm sure we probably have some requirements that if you're gonna put accessory lighting, you gotta point it down.
So the house is on the east side of the
This is
road?
on the east
Okay.
side as you're driving up Kill Creek. And it's not horrible, and I don't think it's a hazard per se, but it's like, wow, it's noticeable, and I'm kind of surprised. Huh?
North of the church.
Yes. Yeah. I wish I could tell you which house it is. I don't even know if I could tell you, but it's one of the ones, I think it's after the new houses.
Yeah, south of the new houses,
Yeah,
that hits when you're coming up there.
yeah.
Oh, we can look into that. Yeah, if it's a safety issue, we can address it.
And then other than having a really nice rectangle in the hole down where the cold storage place used to be, I'm assuming they still haven't pulled a permit to put a foundation in?
Correct. No, there's a
It's a lovely
soil
rectangle.
disturbance
It is.
permit, and that is it. Yeah, floodplain fill permit, which essentially is what they're doing, but it does seem to be a very specific rectangular
Yeah.
hole for a very specific.
Maybe they're gonna do an in-ground pool.
But yeah, no, there's been no permit application. So,
Okay.
and obviously, if it's anything other than single-family residential, it would have to come here first. So-
I'm just hoping they don't raise it up high enough when the dump trucks go through there, they hit that power line. Cause the line,
It is kind of low.
yeah, it is.
That is interesting.
I got a question on like roads, like 95th Street, Sunflower Road, all those roads that are getting completely destroyed with all the increased traffic and construction. Is there any plans to like fix some of that stuff or maintain it through this process? 'Cause,
Yeah,
like, some of these
certainly.
things are getting terrible. Like, I don't know
Yeah.
how often you drive up there, but I mean, they're just disintegrating.
Yeah, so we've had specific discussions with Evergy specifically, because realistically, they are most of the heavy traffic out there. You know, there's nothing we can do to require them, but they have agreed to help us with a solution, emergency repairs as needed, but after after the heavy work is done to address a lot of those, specifically 95th and Sunflower, both.
Right.
It doesn't, west of Sunflower Road's fine, well, except for right there by their substation.
Correct, just where they're, it's really just tearing the shoulder.
Yeah.
The shoulder's disintegrating and the road's just breaking down in.
And
with
Sunflower
off
Road's-
the edge and turning in and everything, it's just falling apart.
Yeah, we do have a plan. I can't say specifically when that'll happen, but, yeah, we notice, we're aware, and
Just so
agree.
there's so much traffic that it's just deteriorating the roads, big
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
That's all.
Not to bring up, every 6 months I bring it up, but has there been any movement on the signs on getting the space between E and S on KDOT?
On KDOT?
Yeah.
Part of the 103rd Street project is a re-signing of some of those interchanges and
Okay.
the city limit signs
Yep.
and the DeSoto next 3 exits.
Yep.
Of course, it used to say next 2, now it's gotta say next 4. Yeah, those are in line to get replaced. Again, I can't exactly say when that'll happen, sometime in the next 12 months, I would.
Actually, the Ames maps aren't keeping up either, because I was trying to figure out whether we'd annex the property that was on for tonight, so.
Yeah, well, again, no, that was just 5 days ago.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Hard to keep up.
I'm sure that's true.
Alright, I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I don't care.
This conference is no longer being recorded.